have the right to vote, but I have to register to vote. I have to show my ID when I vote now.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Oh, you will. You will have to.
I certainly will.
Your side has made sure of that.
You can walk into a gun show.
This is not a
What is the reason for the Second Amendment, the individual right to keep and bear arms? Can you tell me that, please?
What is the
reason that the framers made it the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution?
Stop insurrectionists.
To stop insurrectionists. No, I'm sorry. It's
it's
exactly the opposite. It was to keep arms in the hands of the people in the event as a last in a series of checks and balances against abuse of government.
But they didn't have assault weapons back then.
The government made that so that
the United States Supreme Court, 1934, U.S. versus Miller, determined that the militia-type weapons that were protected were those of a common use at the time.
That's absurd.
For 2 seasons, I shot an AR-15. So are you scared of me because I own an AR-15 and I shoot it competitively?
No,
I'm a law-abiding citizen. A law-abiding citizen is never going to use any weapon in an unlawful way. So you're worried about the wrong things.
No.
The criminals will always get their hands on firearms. I don't care what kind of laws you put in place. That's what made them a criminal to begin with. They don't pay attention to laws. But any weapon in the hand of a law-abiding citizen will never be used unlawfully. So you're going after the wrong thing. Go after mental health. Yes, go after mental health. But just in the past couple of weeks, a guy in Michigan who had already been declared mentally ill and had already killed his mother, passed a background check and bought 15 firearms.
It is.
Well, I want to mention something. You know, he brought up his prison ministry. If his faith is so strong, then why would he need a weapon? And second of all, Jesus said, pick up the sword and you die.
I don't know how to address that, really. I just don't.
You don't? So let me ask this. Why do you have two words that most far rights always say together, guns and God? Those two things should never be even put in the same paragraph, let alone the same sentence.
90% of the American people right here, right now, today, that want these laws put in place. There are 75% of NRA members that want these laws.
Those are falsehoods. Point out the stats, please. Now, you can't just make this stuff up as you go along,
I am not making this stuff up.
You're the exact reason why I worry about these firearms.
Oh, now who's the hater now, Chief?
Oh, listen, anger and aggression,
who's the hater now,
Chief? They do not go well with firearms.
Trust me, I do not hate. I think the problem is that why would you want to? We have a government to take care of us. We have a government. They protect us from people such as that.
Thank you for so clearly elucidating your position.
I don't hallucinate.
I do understand the distinction between semi-automatic and automatic because I've actually shot a semi-automatic shotgun. But I do think that, and I think Gail probably knows more about this than I do, but as I understand it, we would never have had a massacre like we had in Newton or in Aurora, Colorado, or in Tucson, Arizona, if we hadn't had a gun that could have let off a number of rounds quickly. Because I understand that when Jared Lochner had to reload his high-capacity magazine, that gave the law enforcement officers a chance to halt the killing.
Let's go back to George Zimmerman in Florida, killed Trayvon Martin because he was so adamant about carrying a weapon.
And you don't really know what happened, so before you say somebody's head was bad.
By all the evidence, it looks like he was getting his head slammed against the sidewalk.
You don't really know.
I believe you're talking about an interview, and I saw the video on this, in which the study cited was a Johns Hopkins study that said that there were something like 2,000 criminals in the concealed handgun permit holder database. It's this study, the Case for Gun Policy Reforms in America, and that's the one that was cited. Unfortunately, this is not research. What this is a white paper. A white paper is designed to advocate a position. In fact, this piece of research right here was underfunded by the Michael Bloomberg School of Public Health, to which this leading gun ban advocate donated $107 million. Now, as far as the reference goes to the North Carolina concealed handgun permit holders, this paper doesn't cite research. What it cites instead is a newspaper article written by New York Times reporter Michael Luo, who claimed that there were these criminals in the database. Now, it's long since been debunked because it relied on data matching, which tended to produce false positives, and in fact, Michael Luo even refused to release his own data on this thing. But the point is, we now have a research paper which is taking as evidence a newspaper article. This is on par with a cancer researcher saying he has found the cure based on something he read in a newspaper.
Well, can I just add really quickly to that point? Because I'm glad that Johns Hopkins is doing research on gun violence, because the CDC has been prevented from doing any gun violence research because of congressional pressure, because of NRA pressure. So I'm actually glad that we've got the Bloomberg School of Public Health looking into this.
You are right that Congress did defund the Centers for Centers for Prevention and Control, their gun injury project, and the reason they did that is because we had people like the researcher on this piece of paper, Stephen Terrett, who were disguising gun ban advocacy as research. We had people like Edgar Souter. Matter of fact, in a peer-reviewed piece that went out on this supposed, on this research that was done in the 1990s, one review called it the anti-gun health advocacy literature is a sagecraft literature in which partisan academic sages prostitute scholarship to validate preordained political conclusions.
Can I add this? First of all, Paul, none of the rest of us get to read our notes. We're using our opinions, and we're not going back to research. But in North Carolina...
So the use of facts is prohibited in this debate. Is that your point?
In the state of North Carolina...